thanks for joining us today, talking politics in Western Pennsylvania. And today we have a newcomer, Christina Grasso, who is running for magistrate here in the Peters Township area. And in fact, Chrissy, how are you?
I'm good, Bill. How are you?
Real good, real good. To let everybody know, we live on the same street. So I've known Chrissy for about 8 years. And so I'm very pleased to say that I learned about you even before, that I really knew you. Your old boss, Gene Vitone, who used to be the DA for Washington County, used to come in and do programs with me. I knew him for about 18 years, and it was fun because of the fact that, well, not fun, but he would tell me about the issues that the DAs were having with drug problems and things here in Washington County.
The opioid crisis that continues.
But before we started the program, I turned to him and I said, "Oh, what's wrong with you?" And he, "What do you mean?" I said, "You allowed one of your assistants to move up the street for me." I said, "Didn't you warn him?" And he said, "Who?" "Oh," he said, "Did Chrissy move up near you? I knew she was coming to the township." I said, "Yeah." He said, "I wish I had 10 more like her."
Oh, that was really nice of
That
him.
was the nicest compliment I ever heard anybody get from him.
That's
So,
really nice.
like you said, coming from him and the time that I knew him, whenever he said that, then that, of course, set us on that proper path.
That means a lot coming from Gene. I had a lot of respect for him.
Gene, good man.
Very good man.
Yeah, all the way around. Well, we're going to talk about Chrissy today.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to talk about Chrissy. Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Washington. I am a lifelong resident of Washington County. I grew up in Canton Township. My parents, my dad's a retired family practice physician, Dr. Craig Fox. My mom, Cindy, was a nurse, and they ran a practice together in Washington, a solo practice for family practice. They did that for over 30 years, so that's where my roots are, in Washington. I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. I was an only child. My grandfather was a retired state trooper out of Troop B in Washington, and it was because of him that he influenced me to go and become an assistant district attorney. Actually, I dedicated that part of my career to my grandfather. He was a very important part of my life, even though I was only around him for 10 years, and unfortunately I lost him early. But I have a lot of respect for the police because of him. And so I went to Trinity High School, and then I went to Washington and Jefferson College, where I majored in political science. And I knew that I wanted to go to law school. And then I went to Duquesne University School of Law. And when I graduated from there, I graduated both schools with honors. And when I graduated there, I brought my roots back to Washington County and came back to work here. And so I've lived here my whole life. And like you said, I moved to Peters Township in 2015. So I've been here a while too.
Well, one of the like I said, one of the interesting things about your background, while you were, once again, I'm trying to remember what was totally said by Gene, but on the other hand, if I'm wrong, please, you were a prosecutor?
Sure.
Prosecuting
Yes.
attorney here.
Yes.
You have experience in other areas of the law, though.
Yes.
You worked with a bank.
I did, yes.
Okay.
So actually, when I graduated from law school, I became a law clerk down in Washington County for the now retired Honorable Janet Machetta Bell. And I clerked for her for a year. And while I was with her, I gained invaluable experience in the courtroom. And I think everybody that goes to law school, honestly, should come out and clerk for somebody, because you get a lot of hands-on courtroom experience. And with her, I got to see civil trials. I got to see PFA hearings, criminal court, family court. I wrote legal opinions for the judge. So I gained a lot of invaluable experience in her courtroom. And then I was hired by Stephen Tuprani, who was then the DA, as an assistant DA. And then I later worked for the late Gene Vitone, as we talked about. And then in the DA's office, I had a tremendous amount of experience there. I got to do preliminary hearings throughout the county, including Peters Township. I got to do summary appeal hearings, which, for those who are unfamiliar with those, when you go to the magistrate and you have a traffic hearing or a non-traffic hearing and you don't agree with what the ruling was, you can appeal those, and you appeal those up to the courthouse. So I did summary appeal hearings as well. At one point I was in charge of the juvenile hearings for the juvenile delinquency court, and I worked hand in hand with the juvenile probation office in Washington County doing those. I was assigned to my former boss's courtroom, Judge Machetta Bell, And then I also had my own trial list, which I did misdemeanors and felony cases as well. And I was assigned to various judges in the courthouse doing that. Judge DeSalle at one point, former Judge Pizonsky at one point, Judge Michelle Bell at one point as well. And I did summary appeal hearings in front of Judge Gilman. So I had experience in front of all the judges. And I like to say I had good respect with them. I earned their respect along with the various police departments that I worked with. I had really good relationship with the various departments. Even the criminal defense bar respected me because, you know, I was tough, but I was fair as well. So I got good respect from those in the community.
Well, the idea that the magistrate position is not a political position.
Right.
And that is demonstrated by you're running on both tickets,
Right.
Republican and Democrat. I was impressed to see my Democratic friends that supported you in this event.
Yes.
They are somewhat, I would consider, the big hitters in the Democratic Party here in the township and in this area. You were also supported well by, you know, the Republicans, who, in fact, you know, I've heard nothing but good things, comments back from them. So, which is, I remember the other thing that Gene told me.
Oh.
He said, I don't know why she's working for me. He said, she'd make 10 times more with a private firm.
That's very nice too.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you know, then whenever he came out, that came back in my mind, but whenever he throws out things like that, it makes me understand how he felt, and also your abilities that presented to the county during your period of time there. But you're not just with the county.
No. So I left the district attorney's office, and as you had mentioned, you know, I would have liked to have stayed there longer. The unfortunate part is, and I'm sure everybody's aware of this, that goes on and works in public service, that the money is not there. And unfortunately, the law school loans are there. So you can't really make a living out of working there forever. So as much as I loved working in the DA's office, in fact, it was my favorite job I ever did. I had to move on and find something that I could make more of a career out of so I could pay my law school loans back. So I went to PNC Bank after I left the DA's office, and I worked in the Charitable and Endowment Division as a senior trust advisor. And my role there was to ensure that, you know, we had very large charities to work with. We needed to make sure that the legal documents were working appropriately and they were paying the charities appropriately, and it was our job to make sure that it was being followed to the terms of the document. And if we ever spotted any issues, we worked with outside counsel out of the bank to you know, rectify anything. And then when I left there, I was hired by the internal audit department because I was a good issue spotter for the bank, and they actually liked that. So I got hired by the internal audit department and the asset management division, and I worked there for a while. And then I was working myself up the ranks there. So again, we were determining if the asset management group was following the appropriate regulations and governmental regulations at the bank. It was our job. We were the last line of defense in the bank before the bank would get written up. So it was very important that we stopped any issues from getting outside of the bank. I worked there for a while, and I was actually, I had a wonderful boss there. I was up for promotion, and that's when I had to ultimately make the difficult choice. But for my family reasons, I had to step aside from my career and take a step back. So that's why I am where I am today. For the last several years, I've actually been home with my family, which I don't regret for a second. They needed me more than any other job could have possibly needed me at the time. My parents, they had some health issues, and I had said I will be the primary caretaker. And our youngest child, she has unfortunately had some medical issues that I've had to stay home and help her with. And it has been a very rewarding job, and like I said, I don't regret it for a second. But that's where I've been today.
By the way, Vienna, your daughter, is here with us.
Yes.
Hi, Vienna.
Hi.
She's in the room in there watching. But besides everything else you've done,
mm-hmm.
all right, and which is a ton of it right now, you've taken on a couple other things. You work here with the Youth Commission in Peters Township.
Yes.
And how long have you been with them?
It's been several years. I want to say about 4 years on the Youth Commission. So for those that are unfamiliar with the Youth Commission, it's a wonderful program that is unique to Peters Township in the county. And I can say that because I did juvenile delinquency court back up in Washington. And I actually was unfamiliar that that program existed in Peters Township when I did the juvenile delinquency court. So what happens is that members of the community can apply to council, and council selects the members to be on the commission. There's 9 of us that are, peers throughout the community. And the police department, specifically the school resource officers, bring us cases that are first-time offenders. They are summary cases. And if we determine them to be eligible, we offer them the ability to come through our program. And our program enables us to mentor the students through a process. And if they complete the process, then at the end of that, we recommend that they have no criminal record for that specific offense. We don't hear misdemeanors or felonies, but it is a nice alternative for students, in the community to not have a permanent record because they made a one-time mistake.
People don't understand how that can affect and impact you in later time. I worked for a school district that our resource officer was bragging to me almost every month that his average arrest is 18.
Wow.
And that's in the high school. And I always felt bad for him because he had that little man syndrome. He had to act like he was tough and throw his badge around, and thank God we don't have those officers here.
No, our officers are wonderful in the schools.
Yeah, so that's it. But like I said, so you've been involved in the community on that level. You've been involved in the county court system. You've been involved in the in the public domain, as it were, with PNC. Those donations and those, like I said, every week you hear about Hillman, giving millions of dollars to this or that or anything else. And so you really do have to have a department that watches over that and make sure that that somebody's not skimming off the top or
You have to make sure that it's we had irrevocable trusts and revocable trusts, and we had to make sure that it was following exactly how the document was intended to be. So it was an important job, and I enjoyed my time there too. But
well, I'd imagine you would. Let's talk about the job you're looking to get now.
Yes.
All right. People don't understand sometimes what the requirements of the magistrate are, as far as education or as far as, what that job entails.
Sure. So Pennsylvania is actually one of the few states that does not require you to be an attorney to have the job. In fact, most of the magistrates I went to were former police officers, and they did a phenomenal job. They're just required to receive more training before then and take an exam. But for an attorney, you do have to take a course and everything, but we understand the law because we were trained in that for 3 years in law school, and taking the Pennsylvania bar exam. We are found to be competent to do the job. So yeah, it's a job that I've had my eye on for a while. I've something that I've wanted to do. I did not think that I was going to have the opportunity to do so living in Peters Township. My understanding was that position was not going to be available. It was potentially going to consolidate and close and go with the Cecil Township and merge there. So it did not come to become an opportunity for me until last Tuesday.
You sort of cut out 2 weeks there that you could have been taking your time and getting things done. But
and this really wasn't on my radar, honestly, and so I will say this much, Bill, and I've told a lot of people this in the last few days. I'm not a politician. I'm not. I'm an attorney, and I'm a mom, and I'm a wife, and I'm a lifelong resident of this county, and I give a lot back to the community when I can. That was why I did the Youth Commission. I felt like I had the assets that would be good to provide to the community in doing so with my experience with juvenile hearings and such. But I'm not a politician. It's a very foreign thing to me to go and knock on someone's door that I don't know and say, hey, can you sign my petition? The petitions were a foreign process to me as well. I thankfully had a lot of people, helping me in the background, telling me, the do's and don'ts of it. But I had about 4 days and some not so great weather to collect all of these signatures. And I cross-filed because the magistrate, as you mentioned, is supposed to be apolitical, neutral, so we can cross-file on the Republican and the Democratic side. So there I went out, with some friends and family who were willing to step up and help me get these signatures in the last 4 or 5 days. And I'm proud to say that we accomplished that goal. We got on both tickets. I filed the paperwork yesterday before the deadline. And so I'm eager to see how, it goes in the primary, and I hope that I get the support that I'm asking for. But, I said this too, I'm not asking for that support blindly. I want everybody to get to know me, who I am as the candidate, because like I said, I'm not the politician out there, and I may not have the name recognition that others may have. But, I would like the opportunity to get to know as many people as I can in the township and the surrounding areas that I'd serve. And I want people to do their homework on the election. I want people to ask questions and reach out to me. I'm always willing to talk to anybody, and I want to get to know as many people as I can. So I think once people get to know me, they ask about my professional reputation in the community, whether it be with law enforcement I've worked with, judges I've worked with, people I've worked with in the DA's office. I think that they'll be confident that I would be a right person to support.
Well, like I said, let's look at the specific job of a magistrate and look at the parameters of what they're required to do.
Sure.
Okay. So we talked a little bit earlier about one of the things that I did find out, that there's only 38% of the magistrates in Pennsylvania are attorneys.
Yes.
I didn't realize that was that low of a figure.
Yes.
Which I was surprised about. Let me see here. What else? We talked earlier about the limits, the possible damages
Yes.
of $12,000
for the civil.
Okay.
Right.
So if you have a tenant and landlord situation, that's another position
Yes.
that you have to be involved in.
Correct.
And
It's not just traffic
yeah.
hearings. That some people think that it's just, traffic court. It's
A
not
ticket,
just that.
yeah.
No, there's actually some major crimes that come through, criminal crimes, criminal hearings that, anything up to homicide. I mean, it's serious crimes. So they do the preliminary hearings, and they set bond. Appropriate bond needs to be set. You can be called out in the middle of the night to cover a case. You have to be available for that.
Yeah, that's something that I found out the other day, is the fact that the courts in Washington County are closed at nighttime. So if something happens, you can be called out to, in fact, as you say, post a bond or bail or whatever it is, or send them down to the county.
You have to arraign them. You have a certain time frame to do so. So they have a rotational basis where the magistrates are on a calendar, and they're called out in the middle of the night to do that. You have to be on call. That just comes with the territory of the job. So, it's just part of it.
Yeah, there's, like I said, there's so many different things here that this job has. You can be 21 years old. You don't have to have a law degree, but as you said, you need to go and take a course, and then you have to have yearly. If you're not a lawyer,
I don't know why I watched that. I'm sorry.
yeah, you have to take yearly courses to upgrade you on the laws and things like
Right.
that. Do you have to do that if you're an attorney too? Or?
You need to have so many credit hours every year.
Okay.
They make you take. I mean, as attorneys, we have to take continuing legal education every year as well. So it's something I'm already familiar with doing.
Yeah, I realized also there's 512 throughout the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Holding this position.
Yes.
And and I take, as you thought of earlier, you talked about that the state was considering lowering that number because of the fact, and this was one of the potential ones on the chopping block.
Correct.
Because of the fact that they're trying to cut back on the expenses.
Yes.
Of, like I said, which is crazy. I have a hard time whenever we have so many, the crime is going up everywhere.
Right.
All of a sudden they're now looking to cut back on things. Even we've actually had robberies here in the township.
Right,
So,
it's quite scary. This
yeah.
South American group that, has made their way into the township, and, we've had several burglaries as of recent, and, that's frightening. The
Well, you have
crime
to-
is on the rise, and
Yeah.
that's scary.
Well, you sit there and watch. When I used to live down in Virginia, Newport News radio station or TV station would have all the murders that happened from midnight till 6 in the morning. And lunchtime, they'd have all the murders that happened from 6 in the morning till noon. And at dinner time, they'd have them all again. Every newscast, they would tell you the murders not happen all day like they do here.
Wow, that's
They
frightening.
tell you just the last 6 hours because there's so many.
I'm not sure you felt safe at that point.
I didn't. I didn't at all. And that's, like I said, living down there, I worked for a company that did a lot of marine construction. And it was fun. Half of our workforce had ankle bracelets.
Wow.
And we had like 140 people.
Okay.
And so I spent my entire Monday calling, the courts saying, I don't know if he was on the phone or not, this kind of thing.
Right.
So the follow-up to any of these crimes, it's not just, he goes to court, cop gets him, this kind of thing. There's a whole other district behind there that is involved in the criminal process. And the John Q. Public, my undergrad was in legal studies, but they never told us about that stuff. They
Right.
never told us the degree that everybody has to be involved to make this system work.
Sure.
And that's disheartening because of the fact that, I'm like, my degree was in that and I didn't know. I can imagine John Q. Public has no clue. And that's really sad because, we're supposed to be trained into what our Constitution's about and everything else. I was watching a video from the University of Texas, and the person was walking around with a camera and a microphone asking people who won the Civil War. And 90% of the kids said, what Civil War?
That's scary, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, and they want 15-year-olds to right to drive and 16-year-olds to right to vote, and they don't even know our history,
Right.
let alone what's going on now. So it's concerning. You mentioned you have two of the most beautiful kids I've ever seen.
Thank you.
Your youngest was here walking around, and everybody's just in love with her now. And Mike, your husband,
Yes.
he works locally too.
He does. He does. He works in Peters Township on Valley Brook Road. They have an office, pay governance. They do executive compensation consulting for Fortune 500 companies primarily, I believe. I don't know. Sometimes it's not really my thing. It goes over my head what he does, but it's a unique niche of a job that he works in. But he's been a wonderful support system since I decided to dive into this within the last week. And then, yes, we have our two daughters. Natalie, she's a second grader at Bower Hill Elementary. She tells us every day she wants to be a scientist, but Mike and I say that she's the greatest arguer in our family, so she probably should go to law school instead. And then you mentioned Vienna. Yes, our little one. She's 5, finishing her last year at St. John Preschool, Catholic preschool, which is where we are all parishioners at. And she'll join Natalie over at kindergarten at Bower Hill next year in the fall. So.
And another thing that made us more together, you have a horse,
I have a horse.
okay, and you've been involved with riding all your life.
Yes.
I had horses, and like I said, whenever I got injured on the job down in Virginia, I had to back away from all of that, which really is upsetting because that was the best time of my life. But and I've done, you name it, pilots, motorcycles, sports cars, everything else. Horses are the best.
They are the greatest.
Yeah,
They sure are.
it was fun. But it's, like I said, so your background isn't just sitting at home doing this or that.
Right.
You have a large amount of experience in many fields. You have a personality which in fact is I think perfect for it. And
Thank
as
you.
you said, you said you're non-political. I can vouch for that. I can vouch that you're a non-political. You don't try to make up your mind on something until you hear what's going
Right.
on.
Sure. And I think that's helped me get support from both sides. I'm not a political person. Like I said, I'm not a politician. So I think it has helped me get bipartisan support, even though the magistrate is supposed to be, a neutral thing, really.
Well, it hadn't done that in the past.
Right.
And like I said, it was, there's been questionable times in the past. So, it's like anything else. You sit there and you just hope for the best as we move forward.
Sure.
And that'll be the case. I'm going to turn it over to you for a little bit.
Okay.
And just tell people why they should vote for you versus that of
Sure.
anybody else.
Sure. Well, I think that I've already explained that I have the experience necessary to do the job, that I feel that I'm competent to do the job. I've been told by many people that have actually encouraged me to run for it that I have the appropriate judicial temperament for the job, that I can be fair and impartial. I have good ethics. That I, can be firm, but yet compassionate when I need to be. And that, look, the reason I did this, honestly, outside of really thinking that I would be a good fit and a good candidate for this, something that I had explained I had always had my eye on anyways, because it was something that I was very passionate about. I want the electors on May 16th to go to the primary and have another option, to have another choice on the ballot, that they're not, they're not handcuffed into making a decision. They have an opportunity to get to know another candidate and make a decision they feel is best fit at this time. So, like I said, I don't blindly ask for anyone's support. I want everybody to get to know me, to ask me the questions. I want them to know I'm approachable, and I'm going to do the best I can to get out in the community and meet everybody that I can. And like I said, I think if they ask the people that I've worked with in the past, I think that they will find that they can support me and feel confident in supporting me in this election.
You have, how do I want to put it? You have the ability to make people feel at ease. Oh. One of the things that whenever I've heard from the people, and unlike yourself, I'm sorry to say I've been involved in politics in this township. I was on council, I was
Sure.
on the school board, I was the chairman of the Washington County Republican Party. I was on the state committee. So I'm sorry to say I've probably been too much involved. Okay?
No, there's no knock on that.
Well, but like when I look back, it's just been a situation where sometimes you'd like to step back and you'd like to take a look at the picture. And I've taken a look at the picture, and I think that this opportunity is the time. Besides being, and I want to point this out, that if you do get elected, you'll be the first woman to ever hold that position in Peters Township.
Which that would be a wonderful thing.
Well, I think like I said, I'm when I was on the school board, I was looking at things. When I first got married, my first wife and I had 2 boys. My second had 2 girls already, and we had 1 for ourselves. And then I started looking at things totally different. Whenever I was just, hey, guys, go out there, and all of a sudden it's like, you touch my daughter, they'll never be able to distinguish you with your dental records and things. So, so like I said, you have to get that whole different view. And there's not a lot of positions that women hold that girls can look up to.
Right. You're right. There's actually, I believe, only 1 female magisterial district judge in Washington County right now. And if you look up statistics, since you brought up statistics before, I believe 3 out of the 4 in Pennsylvania are men. 3 out of 4. So I feel like I'd bring a fresh perspective to this. And again, I would just humbly ask for everyone's support.
Well, needless to say, I think, like I said, whenever I saw the names of the people that are in fact supporting you from both sides, I think it was impressive. A lot of the people on either both party, I'm sure if they saw that list, they'd go, holy smokes, I didn't realize that she was being supported by them. And like I said, there's so many opportunities here that I think that you would fit the bill very well.
Well, thank you. I
So
appreciate that, Bill.
We'll look forward to having you back as time goes on.
Sure.
Needless to say, I'd like to thank you very much for
I'd
coming.
like to thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, Chrissy, that'll be it. And we would love to have you back the next time we're talking politics in Western Pennsylvania.
Thank you.